Hey everyone, it's Time Spiraled. Welcome back to the MSEM channel. Today, some MSEM Cube League updates, talking a little bit about what's been going on this past week with the launch of the first Cube League month, the MSEM Cube 2025 edition, talking a little bit about our champions, the plan going forward, the event schedule, and lots of other little things. So straight up, first and foremost, let's talk about the good news. It's all good news, by the way, but let's talk about the real good news. We had such an amazing turnout this week. I was beyond ecstatic. We managed to get 22 players on our very first inaugural draft on Tuesday, and then we followed that up with a pretty respectable 15 players today. We had a pot of 8 and a pot of 7 playing it off today, and it was a pretty late announcement that we would be adding Sunday events, but Tuesdays turned out so well, and we figured we would run the additional event a week early. We were only going to start next week, but hey, it's a good thing that we did. A lot of people were able to show up, and we were able to have a few players who just simply couldn't make the late Tuesday evening events, were able to make it work on Sunday. So for the foreseeable future, those events will be sort of like our two mainstays. Not saying that we can't add a third or some other bonus events down the road, but we're going to stick to 2 concrete weekly events for now. And of course, as I said, we'll reevaluate every couple of weeks or as we rotate the cube on different months. So let's talk a little bit about how things have been going. The event's been going really well. We already have our first 5 champions, 3 of which have already had their champion promos added into the cube. So I definitely want to start by talking about the price structure. So we mentioned it a little bit before. One of the things that we decided to do when we ran the Cube League was we really wanted to be something that no matter how you placed, you always got something for your time. So just by simply participating, you do the draft, and by playing at least one match, or if you're unfortunate and you were planning on playing that first match, but you got the bye and you weren't able to make it for the second match, we'll still count that as well. You're able to pick a card that goes into the cube's mystery slot, or the mystery pool. It is the mystery slot in the cube, but we call it the mystery pool. The mystery pool is currently a list of 24 cards that are picked by the drafters. These cards are not permanent fixtures in the cube, and so far the plan is that whenever an event ends, after, what do you say? Tuesday, so on Thursdays, the cube essentially gets a rotation. So everyone that participated in the Sunday and then the Tuesday draft, I believe, is what we're going to do. We're going to see if we can squeeze it in between Sunday and Tuesday, but the time's a little tight. So what will probably happen is either it'll rotate twice a week or rotate once a week. That's not 100% sure yet, but keep in touch. Players who play can fill out the form, and they pick 8 cards, a maximum of 8 cards, 1 for every monocolor, a gold card, an artifact, and a land. And you can give it a score between 1 and 8, 1 being the card you most want, 8 being the card you least want. And you're allowed to give the same number to multiple cards. So for example, let's say you really wanted a white and a blue, you could put 1 and 1, because it's a first come first serve basis, and we kind of lock it to the first 3 cards. So let's say, for example, we had 16 players. Well, it would be 2 per each of the slots. So 2 white, 2 blue, 2 black. So it's kind of a first come first serve basis. But if you put your 1s, gives it a better chance of that one being picked. So these are the first ones that got added to the cube. They're not permanent additions to the cube, but they can be drafted, they can be played, they can be used. In fact, I think Whiterun Gates was even used this time around. I know Against the Wave, Seeker of Mysteries saw play. Shadowbinder Toka was seen. I think someone was on Oil the Mine, but regardless, they show up in the cube. But they won't always be there every week. So it's not only a cool way of, you get to add any card from the MSEM pool that you think is exciting. And yes, if you're totally new to MSEM, it might be a little daunting to look at 10,000 plus cards. So we always recommend use some search functions to try and find the kind of cards that you're interested in. So maybe you're a big fan of like huge top ends. Well, you can search mana value 8 or greater in green, for example. Or you want to find some cool 3-color cards that do some cool combos. You can use the search functions and find something that's to your liking, or we'll be more than happy to help you out with that. These 24 cards got added to the cube. They were drafted today on Sunday, and like I said, they might still be there on Tuesday, or we'll already start doing our first rotation, adding in the mystery pool cards from this Sunday before Tuesday's draft, which could happen. We just have to see if the timing works out. So it's kind of like your way to put your little touch on the cube and give you a shot of drafting something that you're actually pretty interested in, no matter what the card is, you know? It could be a card from your set. I know some players added cards that were either a card that they had designed or a card that was from their set, a set that they have in the format. And some people just really like certain cards in certain aspects and picked cards that they were just a big fan of. So if you like that, you just got to draft and play at least one match, and you get a mystery card, just like that. So after that, we also have another way of getting some prizes going on. Every time you win a draft, you get a champion promo, and it's really easy. The way that works is you pick any card that was in your cube, and we're going to add a new special overlay. So yes, this uses one of the Bloomborough frames, but it just looks so pretty, and it's kind of full art, and we have kind of like a faux foiling that gets added to it, and you can see at the bottom here. So Caillou won his event, so he picked Arbor Protector to be his promo card, so it replaces the regular art when you're drafting, and it's available for download. So if any players want to have it in their custom pictures, they can definitely use it instead of the regular art. But it's just a way of, you know, highlighting yourself. So as I just said, we had Arbor Protector. Caillou championed that from Tuesdays. Dodger won and championed Bitter Corvus here. And I believe our last card was championed by Styles in his pod, which is the Justiciar Overseer. So as the cards wheel around in packs, players will see these. And it's just a nice way of saying, hey, I won an event. Check it out. I got something really cool. There's currently no plans to add them to the format, but they're kind of easy to add to your custom photos. So hopefully that'll be fine for now. And then the big prize is a server emote. So at the end of a season, which is 3 months, so 3 different cubes, because every month the cube rotates. We'll talk a bit about that again later. Your best 6 scores essentially become your season scoring, and whoever's got the highest is, or shared, like if 2 players have the same score, they'll both win. We'll get a customized commissioned server emote that I will personally pay for, and will be more than happy to add to the server for you to use for the foreseeable future. So yeah, that's kind of like the prizing. Those were our champions, kind of get you into the feel for how the last week happened. Obviously today we had 2 new winners. We had, I believe, Splash Cat, and we also had Lyco Drake. Their champion promos are not in yet, but they should be in within a day or 2. And of course, the new mystery cards from this event, people are still filling them in, and they have just under 48 hours to fill that in. But what I wanted to do now is kind of show you some of the cards that have been doing really well, and then, you know what? No, that's not true. Because we're talking about our champions, what we're going to do is go over to my game logs, and I'm going to point out the players who won. We had a bit of a snafu, and we're missing one of our pod 2 for, unfortunately, for Tuesday. But we'll look at all the other ones, and I want to show you kind of like the decks that took the competition. Of course, if you want to look at all the data, it's available on the drive. You're able to download these logs and just peruse them. We've also got the, for example, if I open it up here and I go to the pick summary, we have a document that has all the pick summary, so you can check what people are pack 1 picking and how that's going. So let's start with Tuesday. I believe this was Styles pod that won, so we're just going to look at the deck. It is slightly possible that the deck is not perfectly set up, because sometimes it doesn't correctly update the sideboard, but we're kind of able to see the kind of cards that they played. So obviously I can't mouse over everything, but it was a pretty nice Abzan list here. Looks like what's really funny is that Arbor Protector is in this list, and it was definitely played in another one. So yeah, we got some strong early starts in Chronicles of the Kitsune here. A lot of fixing. Maybe Hydrolyze was played. I'd be very surprised, but that's the kind of thing. It's not perfectly updated. But you know, you got your Rampant Advanced Power Cell, Verdant Sanctuary. You got some pretty good top end here in Rova the Flesh Weaver. Has been seeing a lot of play. This card's been doing really great. Some big angels, Arbor Protector. Like we said, Justiciar Overseer ended up being promoed. This card is just very powerful, as well as some pretty strong planeswalkers in Alonzo, Departed Detective, and Vivian, the Sagittar, one of the format's premium green planeswalkers. If these you want to look more at the deck list, like I said, we're only going briefly through them because of how much time it would take to just mouse over every individual card. But definitely come and check out the information when we if ever you check out the Discord. So over here in Pod 3, I believe this was Dodger's win here. So Dodger was on a pretty solid, almost mono black, well, essentially mono black. Avalio is a blue-black hybrid. So we got some Reanimator package here in Reclusive Augur. I'm imagining we're going to find Unstill Unlife as another piece of Reanimate, followed up by Inevitable Future. So lots of little pieces that can just bring back your absolutely strongest cards, and they're pretty good. You know, Jijun Dark Hunter absolutely beats face as a massive lifelink haster, and Graz the Night Shaper will continue to reanimate and create, well, not reanimate, but it'll bring back creatures from your graveyard to your hand and make tokens of them as long as they're non-legendary. A lot of black value here. Again, even more reanimate and Leyline Invoker, some hand attack. Yeah, this deck is just really nice and exactly what you kind of want to be seeing here in this mono black. Bitter Corvus ended up being the champion card. So here's the original art. Sort of a flying persister 3/3 that just dies and comes back, and yeah, just digs for cards. And when you have that much value and powerful top end, it's pretty good. Lots of sticky and nice sacrificing threats like Men in Pack, Yuma Wang. Some great stuff here as well. Moving on to today in our Pod 1, we had Splash Cat took the win with a green-blue. So we're seeing some cards that we've seen before. Some ramp with Adarin Scryers. We've got a Performer of Growth here, which can flip into actually a pretty strong beater in Ray the Supplanter, and also, you know, creates a lot of mana because it just keeps playing out forest tokens. We've got more land finding in Restless Explorer, Elvish Wayfinder, some more Rampant Advanced Power Cell, Wayfarer's Lantern, Exhaustive Harvest. I believe one of the things you could do is use Void Portal, and you could loop Studies Past. So there's a lot of things you could do. Void Portal is a really interesting build around. I'm glad someone was able to do it. So this is just pitch a card. You can tutor a card that has the same mana value, and yeah. Only as a sorcery, only once each turn, but doesn't cost any mana to go like tutor some stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty good. There's a lot of things you can do with this card. So it looks like the top end was cards like a bunch of Sphinxes. We have Cryptosphinx, Idiosphinx. We've got a really big beater in Megalo Kraken. And then really just massive top end with Jara Incarnation. I didn't see it get cast when I was watching some stuff, but yeah. One of my favorite cards here in Power Control, which conjures 3 of the Power 9, the blue ones, into your deck, and then you draw 3 cards and you can exile it. And if you can keep picking up those pieces, yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff you can do. So really cool deck. I believe Whiterun Gates got used as well. So yeah, big congrats to Splash Cat. This deck was really cool. And then over here, Lyco, representing the kind of deck that Lyco's pretty known for, low to the ground, pretty aggressive. So some really solid white beats, even playing the promotional Justice Yar Overseer, but doing a lot of work with these early 2/1s and 1/1s, such as Margid Celebrant. You got your Proud Lion here, which can turn into Mount of Heroes as need be. Flutist, Soul Readers, Sparrowhawks, these all end up being a little bigger than what their bodies say. Folson is great. Generates planes, but also, you know, creates a bunch of soldiers. And then some middle top end here in Heliod, Ceaseless Dawn, Commanding Princess, as well as planeswalkers like Cassia the Carefree. Lyco is also our first player to actually land a 3-0. So rather than being 2-1 or 2-0-1 with a tie, Lyco actually did a 3-0 win, which puts Lyco at the top for Sunday's event, but also puts him tied with 3 other players for the current lead in the league. So again, we're only 2 matches into what is promising to be something like an 24 plus match season, and we only take your best 6. So you have a lot of time to come in and play. Like, you can be playing once a month and you're already, like, you know, you got half your matches. If you play a second time out of the 8 events, you're doing fantastic. So we don't actually expect that everyone plays every event. I'd be really surprised if they do, but we hope that the way that we've scored it means that we shouldn't have too many people with tons of top 3-0s. We don't want to really have to increase the what you need to do to win, but hey, if we have to, we will. One of the things we want to talk about as well is that we were hoping to record a draft and gameplay. We found that it was quite challenging to manage the event, obviously, pair 3 different pods, keep an eye on stuff, and provide interesting commentary. So for now, we're actually going to be looking for people who are interested in either recording their matchups or recording somebody else's and sort of being our hosts. We have a few offers already, but if anybody out there is something that could interest them, we'd be happy to have you and help out, because I definitely can't host while I do the recording. My recording was dry as the desert. It was not interesting, and I was tabbing away far too often, especially because the point is not to do any editing for these videos. We just kind of want to put out the VODs. So yeah, that wasn't going to happen. So let's talk about the pool. We are, as I said, about a week in, and there are definitely some cards that are on people's minds. Obviously, it's a 360 card cube, and some of the cards that were talked about were in the mystery pool that I already showed down here, and they'll come and go. So, you know, cards like the Against the Waves, Unceasing Flames, they're not going to be here forever. Shadowbinder Tuca, you know, so while they are quite good, we're not going to focus on that because they're kind of like come and go. Cards that I do want to talk about, though, and I think the first one wouldn't surprise anyone who's been in the event or who's been checking the channels on Discord, is Key to the Nexus. So we really wanted to try at least one conspiracy. I've cubed for a long time, I've drafted for a long time, and boy, I played a lot of conspiracy. And I know, first and foremost, just how powerful conspiracies can be. We did want to give one a shot. This is the one that we picked. There were some others that we thought were even stronger than this one, and there were some that were obviously weaker, but we felt this could be an interesting build around. What ends up happening is, we figured, is people don't actually care about getting the white, blue, black, red, green, it seems. It's just an 8th card, so to speak. Think of it as a sort of turn any card into your sideboard into a companion. So you lock something and you can pay 5 to put it on top of your library. So what's nice about the library part is it doesn't replace your draw. It'll be the next card you draw. But the white, blue, black, red, green lets you free cast it, and people who are able to build around it, this card ends up being kind of gross. So while we haven't set on a date yet, we are likely going to be doing mid-month patches. We don't want these to be big, but it might be 1, 2, we're hoping no more than a handful of cards that would be changed. And if we do, I think you can understand why Key to the Nexus might be on our first list of cards we might have to say goodbye. I'm happy that we tried it, but the amount of times that it's just to pick one and everyone's playing it, but people are also making mistakes and forgetting about it. So it's ending up being maybe fun for the people who it's working for, but it's sometimes ending up being a problem more so than a success story. So Key to the Nexus has been talked about a lot, and it's definitely something to keep in mind. We're going to move into green. Green actually has almost every card that has been brought up as a concern has been in green, which is, you know, kind of a rare thing, I guess, cube-wise. Like, I'm not used to that being the problem color, but hey, you know, it is how it is. And the first one that I want to talk about is this little enchantment here called Verdant Sanctuary, which is part of a 2-card combo that I purposely put into the cube because you can't do it in constructed, but you can only do it in limited. So Verdant Sanctuary just says you can play basic land cards you own from outside the game. It's a really cool 2-mana enchantment. Once you play it, you can essentially play basics, and because it's limited, you can have any number of basics in your sideboard, and you can just keep playing basics without having to draw them, which makes for some honestly interesting deck building, kind of lets you go into 5C, but of course you do have to draw the card to get to it. So that's one of the cards, quite strong here in limited, because it doesn't, you know, quite work the same in constructed when you have your sideboard slots. One of the problems, though, and again, this was a purposeful 2-card combo, is there's another card called Cantrip of Bounty, which is a 4/4 for 6, but it has Inspirit, so you can get it out much earlier than turn 6, and it lets you play any number of lands on each of your turns, so you can see where this is going. When you have the 2 of them together, that's infinite land drops, and there was a few cards put in that comboed well with it, cards that had like mana sinks, like Yeshin of New Humanity, which if you have infinite mana, makes an infinitely wide, infinitely tall board. You have... where's the other one? There's some other cards that have you can do just so much. Gorganith grows infinitely big, and then you can tutor out your whole deck and graveyard. There's a few others. It's just, you know, what ends up happening Agency Doorbreakers becomes infinitely big as well. There's a few of them that are like that, where you can kind of like just pay mana into it and just kind of do some crazy nuts things. Like, we kept it minimally. Like, the point wasn't for it to be like super easy to go infinite. There's obviously some stuff in like other colors, but so it's actually been, because it's a 360 cube, the cards always show up. And what's been happening is that while you generally want to pick one if you get the other, people are picking them highly enough that when the other one comes around, they've been pretty lucky in snap picking it. And again, I don't want to just shred out what's a possibly cool combo, but we do want to keep an eye on it. So if we get to the mid patch after next week's drafts and we see that these cards are still maybe being a problem, one or the other might go. I don't know which one is likely to go at this time. I've been thinking hard about it, but you know. Some really powerful cards in green still that people have been talking about. Some really powerful cards in the low end, like Mattia, Hero of Tiny Veil, which does a lot of work in Constructed and just does a lot in Limited. This guy just keeps growing and then forces blocks, and he's got Flash. He just does a lot. Fantastic card. Same with Asalia, but this one's not really been a problem. It's just been quoted as being a pretty good card. But Mattia is really strong, and then sitting at the top end, in parentheses, is Rova the Flesh Weaver, except Rova has, like all the Elder Horrors from Toll Midnight, a discard mode that lets you get out a much smaller version and weaker version of it, but it still ends up being a 5/5 that puts a 4/4 that puts a counter on each of your creatures, so it ends up as a 5/5, and then whenever you attack with it, it just keeps growing your board. So this has been pretty strong and definitely a reason to be in the green sort of colors, but these are the cards that have been brought up quite a bit. Obviously, there's some other stuff. Dream Monologue has been brought up. No, sorry, not Dream Monologue. That one's been okay. Reflected Moment as a take an extra turn that goes back into your library, and if you can prophecy it, which doesn't really happen very often because the reveal barely matters, but it's mostly the take an extra turn, shuffle it back into its library. If you can keep getting this over and over and you can put out a lock, that's kind of rough. There hasn't been too many other cards that have been called out as being like absolutely backbreaking. I mean, I know Void Portal's been called out as being kind of egregious in that you can just kind of get whatever and do some loops. Deathless Siege can be potentially hard to deal with. The enchantments actually have proven to be pretty sticky. So this is just more so in Constructed, but you know, Marillier Ever Plundering is quite good, but I think it's been very balanced here in the cube where it doesn't have as good artifacts to go and search up. I guess everything else has been actually pretty reasonable, which all things considered is pretty nice. Obviously, we have some cards that don't make a very high pick list that are, you know, kind of going last, but that's the same for everything. Some of the cards that I want to point out a little bit, Zarine's Pariah is actually just really good. It might read like a multicolor card, but this just lets you cast a spell of each color from your graveyard. So even if you're 2 colors, you get 2 free cards cast every turn. It doesn't exile them if they're instants and sorceries. So you can just do a lot of crazy stuff with Zarine's Pariah. So, you know, big fan here. Blind Eternal, funnily enough, has been one of like the big picks. If you want to stick it under a Key to the Nexus, you just get an 8/8 flyer that, you know, sometimes it's just enough to deal enough, you know, to beat up your opponent. Sentry Genius is, you know, the triple prowess for a 3-drop. If it sticks and no one deals with it, it will absolutely grow like super big. Cosmic Coalescing has been doing really well as well, letting you get some key stuff out of your sideboard. But honestly, things have been pretty decent. A lot fewer like complaints than I was maybe expecting. I mean, the cube only had so much playtesting and like theory crafting behind it before we launched, because, you know, that's just the nature of the custom formats. It's hard to get a lot of people in, but yeah, it's been really fun. People have been enjoying it. Lots of different decks have been tried and different decks have been winning. Of course, we're only, you know, 5 pods in, but as the next week goes, we're hoping to have even more information for you here on the channel. And if, again, you'd be interested in seeing the drafts, the matches, I really hope to either have someone handle the hosting side of things or have someone handle the commentary side of things. And we'll still hopefully put some on the channel, or we'll redirect you to some of our other players' stuff. So thanks again for tuning in. We've got, you know, lots of tools lying around in the Discord. You can definitely check, as we said, the complete pick summaries are always available. Essentially, whoops, where am I going here? Game logs. Essentially, you can find pick summaries like this for every draft that's been done so far. Some casuals, and then we switched to just doing the competitive ones. These are available. And yeah, people are discussing picks, and we're doing like playtest practice drafts without the games just every day or so. It's feeling pretty great, and we're already 1 week into our 4-week schedule. And then after that, February, there'll be a whole new cube to showcase. And we'll definitely do a reveal video for that one, kind of walking you through the big changes. And I hope you like multicolor, because, yeah, Alcaba, the sets that we are basing the next cube off of, have a lot of it. So there's going to be some spicy stuff. So we hope you've enjoyed this little look into this week here in Cube. And if there's anything that you'd love to see in future sort of like patch note videos like this, we'd be more than happy to put it out there. We got plenty of time for these things. So thanks again. Hope you have a great one, and come on and play. We've got room for so many more players. Stay tuned. This has been Time Spiraled. Thanks again for watching.